Welcome back. In the last video, we answered our first question, and since then, I just cleaned up the section a little bit. In this video, we're going to move on to our second question. What is the overall diversity profile of the organization? In a real world situation, I would go to my supervisor or my manager or whoever it is that is asking me to fulfill these requirements, and I would ask them, what do you mean? Before I get into building out the diversity profile by age, it is important to note that in preparation for this, I realized I had to add an age column. I also had to go back and correct the data type conversion for all of the date columns, and I'll show you what I mean. So if you'll remember in the data cleaning video where I updated these columns, the data type that it was showing was like date time 64.ns or brackets ns or something like that. And I didn't really know what it was. All I knew is that it was showing as date time, which is what I wanted to do. I didn't know what the ns attached to the end of it meant. It turns out that it stands for nanosecond. That date time format will give you not only the day, month, year, but it'll also give you a timestamp right down to the nanosecond. When I was trying to create my age column, that weird date time data type was throwing off my function. So after a great deal of research, to find out that it's really just like it's easiest specifying that I want those columns to be converted to date time 64. I'm not going to go into detail about these lines of code. When I share the notebook, I will include in my sources where I found this information, and hopefully that will help you out. So once I ran this, I decided to just do a quick validation of the date of birth column to see which employee is the youngest. And I got this really interesting number. If this is the youngest person, then it's probably just a data entry error. On Kaggle, I found one person's resolution to this problem, and they simply decided to offset the entire column by 100 years. This essentially takes all of the values in the date of birth column where the year is greater than 2000, and then it subtracts 100 years from that value, and then it takes the result and sticks it back in the date of birth column. It's pretty cool. And so when you run this, I see that that result is 1992, which is more reasonable than 2070. So now that I have this all squared away, I can move on to actually creating the column that will calculate the age of each employee to the day. This function actually uses today's date as a reference to calculate the age for each employee. So I never have to go in and do any additional calculations, and every day that I run this code, the result in the age column will be different, which is great. Like, you don't want to have to go back and manually update that column. This function will automatically calculate the age of each employee based on whatever the date is that this line of code is run. I'm sure that there's a way to build on that to send alerts for employees' birthdays, which would be really sweet and considerate of a company to do. Maybe I'll look in and see if I can figure out a way to do that. Now that I've got those explanations out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and start building out my diversity profile by age. So the first thing I want to do is just to get an idea of what the age range is for the active employees. Okay, so if you'll see here, we have our range. Let's see how age is distributed across the company. This is just a histogram to show me the distribution of employees by age. I'm going to break the age column into 3 groups just to get an idea for which age groups represent what percentages of the employee workforce. I'm going to see if those percentages are indicative of the national average. So these are the percentage representations of each age group, and as we can see, the 55 to 70 age group represents approximately 5% of the company, which is actually below national average. I just think it's really important that companies make an effort to ensure that their overall diversity profiles are indicative of the national average. So the next thing I'm going to do is create a visualization that will basically illustrate salaries by age group and department. Most of this is formatting just to get it to look pretty. This is the actual graph. I stored it in a variable because it's a lot easier to customize them that way. In the production chart, it looks like for the most part, salary is pretty standard regardless of age. It does look like that, there are some people in the younger age groups that are getting paid more than those in the older age groups. Then again, that could just be due to random error, though it is worth notating. We want to make sure that salary is comparable for all employees, regardless of age. The only criteria that an employee should be judged on is by their performance. We're going to ensure that there aren't any other variables in play when it comes to determining an employee's salary. For now, I'm just going to leave it here, but like I said, I'll notate it for further analysis either on my own or in the presentation. I'm going to consider my diversity by age profile complete. Let's take a break here, and in the next video, we're going to pick up with the next diversity profile, and that will be by gender. Stay tuned.